Bleach meets Naruto, the mad scientist who revolutionized shinobi warfare. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 11. How long do you think it took to achieve this effect? Crack. There was a sound of concrete breaking on the distant wall. Everyone then remembered that there was another test ninja who was knocked away. This Red. They turned their heads and looked even more horrified. The ninja codenamed Red crawled out of the wall as if nothing had happened. He had clearly received a terrifying punch, but he had no injuries at all. It was just his clothes that were torn. But behind him, on the huge wall, a hole the size of a room was branded on it. A large number of cracks spread to the entire wall. What a terrifying defense. Withstood such a punch, but there was no injury at all. Is this kind of defense serious? No wonder it is said that it can resist B-level ninjutsu. Everyone was shocked. Danzo's eyes were even more fiery. Such a technique, combined with the dead soldiers he brainwashed and trained, is simply a killer on the battlefield. Who can stop it? On one side is amazing mobility, on the other side is amazing defense. Jiraiya was amazed and murmured, in each aspect, they have reached the ultimate. This technique, from a practical point of view, is more valuable than Minato's Rasengan. It's hard to imagine that such a technique was developed by a 6-year-old child. Jiraiya looked at Nara with disbelief. The third Hokage was also looking at Nara. At this moment, his mood was like a stormy sea, shaking endlessly. Nara was only 6 years old, and he developed such a terrifying technique. What will happen in the future? Luckily, such a genius is one of us. And he is from the Nara clan. The third Hokage's eyes flashed with joy. With the relationship between the Sarutobi clan and the Ino-Shikacho clan, his position as Hokage will only be more stable. Shikano, is it really okay to give such a technique to us? Chief Yamanaka swallowed his saliva and asked nervously. Yes, Shikano, this is too expensive, we can't afford it. The Akamichi clan leader also looked terrified. If it was just an ordinary A-level ninjutsu, with the relationship between the three clans, it would be fine to accept it. But this is not an ordinary A-level ninjutsu. It is an amazing ninjutsu that can turn Chunin into Jonin-level strength. With a normal brain, you can know that any family that obtains such a technique will at least rise to a higher level in strength and foundation. I didn't expect the effect of the blood suit technique to be so terrifying. Nara Shikano smiled bitterly, paused, and said, but since it was agreed at the beginning, don't change it, you can take it with confidence. Besides, it's not all for you. Yamanaka gets the static blood suit, Akamichi gets the dynamic blood suit, and only Nara has the complete blood suit technique. What's more, only the Nara clan has the complete S-level blood suit technique that combines the two blood suit techniques. Although they said so, the Yamanaka clan leader and the Akamichi clan leader still felt uneasy. The two clan leaders looked at each other and nodded silently. This great favor will be repaid in a lifetime. Everyone. At this time, Nara Shintaku stepped forward and waved his hand, indicating that the test was over. Red and Blue immediately turned off the blood suit technique. I have an additional information to tell you. Nara Shintaku's words immediately attracted everyone's attention. Additional information? Are there any flaws in these two techniques? It doesn't matter, even if there are side effects, it's completely fine. Yes, such an excellent effect is enough to offset the cost. Everyone didn't care. But they didn't see that Orochimaru and Tsunade looked strange. No, on the contrary. Nara Shintaku shook his head and smiled. Guess how long it took these two people to learn the blood suit technique from scratch? How long? As soon as this question was asked, the expressions of the third Hokage and Nara Shikano changed immediately. They knew the time best. Only 1 month. The two Umbu who were learning the blood suit technique were selected as testers just a month ago. In other words, the two learned this A-level ninjutsu in just 1 month. Teacher? Jiraiya looked at the third Hokage with a sudden change of expression in surprise. What's wrong, Shikano? Is there something wrong? The heads of the Yamanaka and Akamichi clans also looked at Nara Shikano in surprise. Before the two could say anything. In the field. Nara Shintaku revealed the mystery, it only took 1 month. Silence. After a brief silence in the air. Everyone's eyes suddenly widened, revealing a stunned expression. 1 month? Yeah, how is this possible? Only C-level ninjutsu can be learned in 1 month. The elders couldn't believe it. But Jiraiya and the heads of the Yamanaka and Akamichi clans believed it instantly. Because just now, the third Hokage and Nara Shikano's sudden change of expression was the best proof. Yes, it takes 1 month. Tsunade spoke at this time, with a proud tone, under the careful teaching of Orochimaru and me, a Chunin can learn any blood armor technique in just 1 month. Hiss. Everyone took a breath of cold air when they heard it. With such a short learning time, the value of this technique is even greater. Episode 12. The third generation was surprised that they were willing to teach this technique publicly. Haha, Tsunade is exaggerating. Orochimaru shook his head, pouring cold water on everyone, and said, 1 month refers to the learning speed that can be achieved by developers like me and Tsunade or Shintaku step by step. For ordinary ninjas, it is estimated to take a year. Because the risk of this technique is still very high, it must be done step by step. Orochimaru paused and added, if you lack medical knowledge and sealing knowledge, it will take longer. 1 year? Everyone was slightly startled and their mood cooled down. This makes sense. If anyone can learn this blood suit technique in 1 month, it would be too outrageous. But despite this, 1 year of learning time is also considerable enough. After all, the effect of this technique is so amazing. Whether it is static blood suit or dynamic blood suit, once learned, it can make the strength of the ninja change dramatically. Ahem, Shintaku, have you thought about how to arrange this technique? The third Hokage looked at Nara Shintaku with expectant eyes. If possible, he really hopes to pass this technique to the village. But this is obviously impossible. The value of this technique is too great, it can become the foundation of the family. Nara Shintaku can't hand it over. He has already thought about it. Tsunade interrupted, with an inexplicably complicated expression. Hehe, teacher, you will get a surprise. Orochimaru also laughed. Surprise? The third Hokage was stunned. He looked at Nara Shintaku in confusion. I plan to teach this technique publicly. Nara Shintaku said slowly. What do you mean? The third Hokage looked puzzled. Teacher, Shintaku is willing to teach any ninja who meets the learning requirements. Orochimaru explained on the side, as long as you are a Konoha shinobi and pass the assessment of any one of the three of us, Tsunade and Shintaku, you can be taught. And below us, the medical department, the barrier class, and the Ino Shikacho are responsible for the initial screening. After those who pass the initial screening, we three will assess whether to teach them. This approach surprised everyone present. Openly teach? As long as you pass the assessment, anyone can learn? Really? The third Hokage was surprised and asked hurriedly, Mitaku, are you really willing to teach publicly? Yes. Nara Shintaku nodded seriously. The third Hokage was immediately excited and flushed. Great! I want to say thank you to you on behalf of all the ninjas in the village. If this technique can be taught publicly, I don't know how many ninjas will benefit. Don't worry, Shintaku. The third Hokage said excitedly, I won't let you suffer. If you are willing to teach the bloodwear technique, in return, I will allow you to choose 5A level ninjutsu and any 2S level forbidden techniques to learn. Forbidden technique. The elders were shocked. But on second thought, they thought it should be like this. The learning conditions of forbidden technique are harsh, and it may take more than 10 years for a person who meets the learning conditions to appear. It is better to give it to Nara Shintaku, maybe he can research something? Okay. Nara Shintaku nodded and agreed to this condition. Great! The third Hokage was even more excited when he saw Nara Shintaku nod. Shintaku, if you need anything in the future, just come to me. I'll help you solve all. It doesn't matter even if you use my personal inventory. The third Hokage grinned with excitement. Nara Shintaku's eyes flickered for a moment, but he didn't say anything. The third Hokage of this period was still a qualified Hokage. If it was Konoha in the future, then Nara Shintaku really needs to think about changing the way to spread the technique. Today is really a double happiness. The third Hokage was beaming, and he waved his hand and shouted, hold a party at my house tonight, everyone come and participate. Everyone nodded with a smile. Good news, of course, should be celebrated. Only. Tsunade looked at Nara Shintaku silently and sighed quietly. This selfless mentality is similar to those two people. At night. The Sarutobi clan. Everyone drank freely at the party and got drunk. Tsunade drank even more. It was obviously a celebration party, but it was inexplicably like a tragedy. Burp. Kid, you, come out with me. Yes, it's you. Tsunade was drunk and suddenly ran over to hug Nara Shintaku, who was eating quietly. A pair of amazingly full breasts, tightly pressed against Nara's face. Nara? This smooth skin and soft touch made Nara marvel, what a good figure. Even though he was only 6 years old, he was a little distracted. Why did you look for me? Nara asked. Don't worry, just follow me. Tsunade pulled Nara up rudely. Great strength. Nara couldn't break free, so he had to let Tsunade pull him out of the party. The two came to a secluded courtyard. Tsunade suddenly stopped, turned around, looked at Nara with a sad face, and asked, "Why, are you so similar to them?" They? Nara was stunned, and then he understood who he was referring to. Nawaki and Kidō. Both of them were like the sun, gentle and optimistic, and eager to become Hokage. I'm not like them, I'm just a person who likes to study ninjutsu. Nara shook his head and said. No, like. Tsunade was angry and hugged Nara tightly. Nara was about to push away. Suddenly, Tsunade cried. Why do you want to leave? Woo-woo, don't die. How abominable. Whoever wants to be the Hokage can be the Hokage. I really hate the Hokage. It turned out that she was drunk. Nara stopped struggling and pulled Tsunade to sit on the ground. He reached out and gently touched her head, and comforted her softly. Okay, everything will pass. Woo-woo. Tsunade cried even louder. Episode 13, New Research Project, Flying Sickle Kick. The next day. When Nara woke up, he found himself lying in a warm embrace. He blinked in confusion. He saw a deep career line appear in front of him, the peaks were high and straight, and the snow was white like the finest porcelain, without any flaws. At the same time, a snow-white thigh was placed on him. The thigh was long and straight, very well proportioned. Nara had no doubt that if he was not 6 years old now, he would have saluted with a gun. He sighed slightly and carefully broke free from Tsunade's arms. He looked back. Tsunade was lying on the bed with messy clothes, her smooth shoulders exposed, and large areas of white skin were presented in the air. The perfect pear-shaped figure was also revealed. Drinking will cause trouble. Nara covered his head and tiptoed out of the room. He didn't know. The next moment after he left, Tsunade suddenly opened his eyes, looked down at his scattered clothes, and his face was ruddy. You got it for free, you pervert. Tsunade muttered in a low voice, turned over, and wrapped his curvy body in the quilt. Outside the yard. Nara found a Sarutobi and asked him to take him to wash up. After washing up, he sat down to eat breakfast. Orochimaru also came, sat next to him with a smile, and asked, How does it feel to be drunk? Don't ask, my head hurts. Nara drooped his eyelids. Last night, he comforted Tsunade, comforting her well. Suddenly, Tsunade pulled him to drink together, saying that he would not leave until he was drunk. Nara was going to try a little. It turned out to be a high-alcohol liquor. He didn't feel it at first, but the more he drank, the more he got drunk. I don't know why, he ran into the room. Hee, Tsunade likes you very much. Orochimaru said with a smile. Nara rolled his eyes. This liking is naturally not about men and women. Orochimaru did not think that a 6-year-old child would have anything to do with Tsunade after being drunk. It can only be said that Tsunade saw the shadow of an old friend in Nara. Then I really have to thank her. Nara said speechlessly. Don't worry, Tsunade is an adult and will adjust herself. Orochimaru patted Nara's shoulder and talked about another thing. In addition, I plan to announce to the public that you are my disciple. Okay. Nara agreed without thinking. The master-disciple relationship is just a layer of skin. Nara doesn't care about this, and Orochimaru doesn't care about this either. But in order to deal with outsiders, he still has to pretend. I'm busy in the next period of time, otherwise I can continue to discuss ninjutsu with you. Orochimaru showed regret on his face. You have your project, and I have mine. Nara's face was calm, and he said lightly, just communicate when you have time, there is no need to stay together all day. Orochimaru's eyes flashed with surprise. Nara, who saw things more clearly than him. Indeed, he had some cooperation with the root, involving some special research. That was the direction Orochimaru was currently specializing in. And Nara, who also had other research directions. Have you decided on your next research project? Orochimaru asked curiously. Nara looked at the empty space in front of him and nodded, I guess so. In front of him. In a system panel that only he could see. The progress of the template has been improved. Current template, Kurotsuchi Mayuri, development progress, 10%, ding dong, congratulations to host for receiving a 10% interim reward, Flying Sickle Kick. Flying Sickle Kick? Nara calmed down and immediately felt a lot of knowledge and skills appear in his mind. I look forward to your good news. Orochimaru ate something and left. In the restaurant. Nara ate slowly while reading the knowledge in his mind. Flying Sickle Kick. A high-speed movement technique used by the Quincy. Its principle is to step on the spirit particles in the air to form a propulsion force and achieve high-speed movement. But there are no spirit particles in the Hokage world. So, what can be used instead? Nara was stunned. If it were in the past, he might have been stuck at this step for a long time. But when the Kurotsuchi Mayuri template was developed to 10%, he also gained a small part of Kurotsuchi Mayuri's inspiration and research talent. So after just a little thought, Nara came up with a solution. Flying sickle kick itself is nothing special, it just uses spirit particles, and spirit particles are a kind of energy that is widely present in the Shinigami world. Is there a kind of energy that is also widely present in the Hokage world? Yes, natural energy. Nara's eyes flashed with brilliance. After breakfast, he went to apply for the relevant information stored in Konoha. The third Hokage went to work early in the morning and couldn't find anyone, but it didn't matter. Nara Shintaku asked any Sarutobi to go there. He returned to the Nara clan. Although the Sarutobi clan lived comfortably, it was not their home after all. It was not easy to transform it into what they liked. Hokage's office. Natural energy information? The third Hokage was surprised when he heard the report from the clan members. Is Shintaku going to study such a difficult thing? He couldn't help but shake his head. Sage mode is indeed attractive, but this kind of power is not that simple. Episode 14. Natural energy with strange properties. Among tens of thousands of people, there may not be one talented person. And among those who have talent, only 1 in 10,000 can succeed in practice. What's more, the practice process is very dangerous. The third Hokage shook his head repeatedly. When he saw the natural energy, he naturally made a judgment. Nara Shintaku intends to study Sage mode. This is a very normal idea. Because in the eyes of ninjas, practicing natural energy is to master Sage mode and gain the power of immortal arts. Otherwise, why practice it? But that's right. Since S-level blood-equipped technique has been developed, it is reasonable for him to have no interest in ordinary arts. The third Hokage muttered to himself and nodded. Geniuses are always curious about higher scenery. Then let him try. It doesn't matter if he fails, just treat it as satisfying curiosity. The third Hokage smiled and quickly signed the approval warrant. Then, he called on Umbu. The warrant was handed to Umbu, who was to organize and collect relevant information. Natural energy is not a secret. In the distant Sengoku era, some people had already tried to practice and succeeded. However, there was very little information left. What Konoha now preserves is the training experience left by the first Hokage, the research records of the second Hokage, and some information revealed by Jiraiya. After Umbu sorted out these 3 pieces of information, he sent them to the Nara clan. Nara Shintaku got the complete information. Let's start. He closed the door and refused to see the guests, and flipped through the information. The research results of the predecessors can bring him a lot of help and save a lot of time. At the same time, outside, the information that Nara Shintaku studied natural energy is not a secret in the upper circle. Because, after the blood-wearing technique came out, everyone is looking forward to what kind of ninjutsu this gifted Nara Shintaku will study next. But they never expected that it was a fairy technique. Isn't this a bit exaggerated? Although he developed S-level ninjutsu, it was done with the help of Master Tsunade and Master Orochimaru. Yes, Nara's own accumulation is not enough. He should calm down and continue to learn. Yes, many low-level ninjutsu are not without merit, and can bring key inspiration to the development of ninjutsu. But as a genius, it is normal to be a little arrogant. That's true. Many people are relaxed. They don't think Nara will succeed, but they don't stop him. Geniuses have the capital to be willful. When Nara fails and is hit, they will comfort him and guide him to the right path. There is no need to be too harsh at the beginning. These remarks. Nara naturally didn't hear them. It took him 5 days to read all the information sent by Umbu, and he had a lot more enlightenment in his mind. The weird characteristics of being violent and lazy? Nara Shintaku understood why the practice of Sage mode was so difficult. The reason is that natural energy has 2 completely opposite characteristics at the same time. Its nature is violent, but it is full of inertia. In other words, natural energy will not actively react to the surrounding things, just like a stone on the side of the road, motionless and dead. But once you touch it, it will show extremely violent characteristics. This also explains my doubts. Violent itself means active, and active natural energy is ubiquitous in the world, and it should have an impact on creatures at all times. Why are the creatures in the Hokage world not affected by natural energy? The whole world should become violent, impatient, and chaotic. Nara Shintaku muttered to himself. However, the creatures in the Hokage world are very stable in their emotions. This is unreasonable. Now that I have read the research of my predecessors, I understand that natural energy actually has the weird characteristics of laziness at the same time. This also explains why it is difficult to practice immortal arts. Nara Shintaku's eyes flashed with enlightenment, and he murmured, because of laziness, it is difficult to absorb it into the body, and it can only be captured by force with high power. But once it is captured successfully, the natural energy will immediately show its violent characteristics. The original power, at this time, has become a dangerous behavior that adds fuel to the fire. No wonder there are only a few people who have succeeded in practicing for thousands of years. Nara Shintaku nodded. However, he is not going to practice sage mode. He just plans to use natural energy. Nara Shintaku already has an idea. However, before starting, he needs to use additional means to sense natural energy. The premise of using natural energy is to be able to sense and interfere with natural energy. If you can't sense and interfere, everything is empty talk. To save time, let's refer to Mount Myaboku's practice and use the materials full of natural energy in the Holy Land to sense natural energy. But Mount Myaboku, that old toad, is mysterious and difficult to contact. The white snake in Ryuchi Cave is also difficult to talk to. Let's ask the Katsuyu immortal in the wet bone forest for help. Nara Shintaku stretched and walked out of the house. This is the first time he has stepped out of the outside world in 5 days. Episode 15, Katsuyu, the Immortal's Surprise, Outside. The news from Nara Shintaku quickly reached the ears of many followers. Failed? Not really, he didn't look downcast. He must be stuck. That makes sense, he went to the Senju clan. It seems he is seeking help. I was saying, how can sage mode be easily researched? Yes, many outstanding ninjas in history have returned empty-handed. Just getting started, most people are stuck. The followers whispered. Senju clan. Tsunade's home. Nara Shintaku quietly drank tea and waited patiently until noon. Tsunade came back from get off work. You look so leisurely, don't you look like you are stuck? Tsunade's eyes flashed with shyness, but it quickly disappeared, and she walked in with a teasing look. What happened that night made her a little embarrassed. What's stuck? Nara Shintaku asked puzzledly. People outside are saying that you are studying natural energy and got stuck at a certain step, so you have to come out to seek help. Tsunade spread his hands and said. Nara laughed and said, although it's not stuck, I did come to ask you for help. I knew it. Tsunade was not surprised and asked casually, what can I do for you? I want the items in the wet bone forest that are rich in natural energy. Nara said bluntly. Tsunade was stunned for a moment, and her face showed a thoughtful look. She asked, something similar to toad oil? Yes. Nara nodded. Then you really found the right person. Tsunade looked at Nara meaningfully, and was secretly surprised in her heart. This kid is very sharp. Until the Katsuyu sage of the wet bone forest, she was easy to talk to, so she asked her instead of Jiraiya. The great toad sage of the Mount Myaboku Holy Land has its own ideas. Tsunade is also reluctant to contact too much. I'll ask Katsuyu the sage right now. Tsunade didn't waste any words, bit his finger immediately, and summoned a teapot-sized Katsuyu split body with the summoning technique. Bang! After a group of rolling eyes. Little Katsuyu appeared, it looked at Tsunade, then looked at Nara Shintaku next to it, and asked, Tsunade? Are you going to introduce a new contract partner to me? The contract conditions of Katsuyu the sage are very loose. Basically, it will agree to anyone introduced by Tsunade. Someone in the medical department has obtained the summoning contract of Katsuyu the sage. It depends on whether he is willing. Tsunade laughed and shook his head, but today I'm not here for this, but this guy is studying natural energy, hoping to get something containing natural energy from the wet bone forest Holy Land. Studying natural energy? Katsuyu, the sage, was shocked. This is not a simple matter. Natural energy is difficult to control, and if you are not careful, it will hurt the researcher. Even with the help of the immortals from the 3 holy places, it is still very dangerous to contact natural energy. What's more, this child is still studying alone. There are a lot of such things in the wet bone forest, Holy Land. Katsuyu Immortal looked at Nara Shintaku in surprise and said softly, but natural energy is very dangerous. If you want to learn sage mode, you can come to me and I can teach you. Thank you, Katsuyu Immortal, but I have other ideas. Nara Shintaku thanked but refused. Really? Katsuyu Immortal did not insist, and turned to Tsunade and said, I will go back to prepare, you wait about 3 minutes, and then summon me. Okay. Tsunade nodded. Bang! The next moment, Katsuyu Immortal turned into smoke. It used the reverse summoning technique and returned to the wet bone forest Holy Land. Seeing this, Nara Shintaku's eyes flashed with joy. Katsuyu Immortal was really easy to talk to. Not only did he directly agree to give it, but he also cared about his comfort and invited him to learn Sage Mode. Unfortunately, Nara was not interested in this. He did not intend to learn the Sage Mode of the Holy Land. Wait a moment. Tsunade said. He waited for 3 minutes. Tsunade used the summoning technique again. Bang! White smoke exploded. This time, the sub-body of Katsuyu that appeared was the size of a table. On Katsuyu's back, there was a bundle of thorns. These thorns contained rich natural energy. Is this enough? Asked the sage Katsuyu. If not, I can take more, but after the thorns leave the Holy Land, the natural energy inside will dissipate quickly, so be careful. It's enough for now, thank you, Sage Katsuyu. Nara walked forward with surprise and picked up a bundle of thorns on Katsuyu's back. The abundant natural energy on it can be directly felt. It meets his research needs very well. I will continue my research and will not disturb you anymore. Goodbye. Nara took the thorns and left impatiently. Hey! Hey! Before Tsunade could react, Nara Shintaku ran away. He really just took the things and ran away. He didn't even want to stay for lunch? Tsunade was inexplicably annoyed. Alas, this boy ran too fast, and I forgot to let him sign a summoning contract with me. Katsuyu Sage also sighed and said, this way, if he needs the thorns in the future, he can directly summon me. No, he can just come to me when he needs it. Tsunade suddenly said. But this is very troublesome. Katsuyu looked at Tsunade in surprise. It's not troublesome. Tsunade said firmly. Really? Katsuyu looked at Tsunade in confusion, not quite understanding the human's thoughts. It was more concerned about another thing. Episode 16, inspired by blood technique. Tsunade, do you think you will succeed? Katsuyu asked. Who knows? Tsunade yawned boredly, but I personally am willing to believe him. The Nara clan is naturally intelligent, and this child is the smartest among the smart people. He dares to study natural energy, he must be sure of it. Katsuyu looked at Tsunade in surprise. I didn't expect Tsunade to be so highly regarded. In its opinion, it was too incredible for Nara Shintaku, a 6-year-old child, to say that he was studying natural energy. If Tsunade hadn't agreed, it would not have brought the thorns just now. Because that might harm Nara Shintaku. Hearing you say that, I am also looking forward to it. Katsuyu smiled. Over the past 1,000 years, many people have found it. But only a few have succeeded in practicing natural energy. Even Tsunade does not meet the learning conditions. I am also looking forward to it. Tsunade smiled. Nara clan. Nara returned home and devoted himself to research. Such a rich natural energy. Just holding the thorns, you can intuitively feel what natural energy is. After getting familiar with it, you can also capture the natural energy of the air with your own perception ability. Nara nodded thoughtfully. The problem now is how to capture the natural energy around you at a high power. Once the natural energy is activated, it will instantly change from laziness to violence, like a volcanic eruption, hurting the caster. How to solve this problem? Nara frowned. Soon. A flash of inspiration came to his mind. No, I made a mistake. I don't need to practice natural energy, I don't need to reach the level of Sage Mode. I just need to use it to provide power for the flying sickle leg. Nara's eyes flickered. Various thoughts emerged in his mind. The essence of the flying sickle leg is to manipulate the spirit particles to form a foothold under the feet, thereby achieving 360-degree aerial movement. Just like the moonwalk in the world of pirates. By stepping on the air, the driving force is formed. In other words, I just need to step on natural energy. Nara's eyes suddenly flashed. That's right. It's not necessary to reach the level of Sage Mode. I just need to use chakra to touch natural energy like climbing a tree or stepping on water, form a foothold, and get a reaction force. Nara stretched out his hand and grabbed a bramble. In an instant, he felt a special energy full of vitality filling the bramble. And around. There is a special energy similar to this vitality, but different. These special energies are natural energy. 1, 2, 3. Nara used up all the brambles and successfully expanded his perception. He can use his ability to perceive the natural energy in the surrounding environment. Next, we need to solve the problem of how to touch natural energy. Nara said to himself excitedly. Outside world. Half a month passed in a flash. Nara has never left the house, let alone been to the ninja school. This made many followers secretly worried. This kid, won't he get stuck in a dead end? It's been half a month, whether it's good or bad, there should be a result. Maybe he can't accept failure. Alas, Sage Mode is not so easy to master, you see it took Jiraiya 3 years. Wait until he comes out, comfort him well. Yeah, after all, he's just a child. Everyone agreed that Nara Shintaku failed. Even Tsunade was the same. Because after the first time he got the thorn, Nara Shintaku never asked her, summoning Katsuyu Sage, to get the thorn again. This is very wrong. Tsunade, it seems that the child failed. Katsuyu Sage took the initiative to contact Tsunade, and said regretfully, if there is any result, he should continue to ask me for the thorns, but he has not done it once since that day. But that's right, he is only 6 years old, and he has not accumulated enough experience. It is normal for him to fail. Besides, Sage Mode is so difficult that few people can succeed in practice. There is no need to be too discouraged. Tsunade was speechless after hearing this. Katsuyu Sage, if you want to comfort him, just go and tell him directly. Why tell me? I don't need comfort. But I can't find little Taku. Katsuyu retorted confidently, I can only ask you, Tsunade, to tell little Taku. Tsunade was even more speechless. Am I not your favorite contractor? Why do you care more about outsiders? Have you changed your mind? On the other side. No one knows that Narataku is writing a scroll and is in a good mood. He should have developed the flying sickle technique. The inspiration comes from the blood suit technique. Natural energy is different from trees and water. Energy has no substance and is difficult to step on. So, you must use something that has no substance to step on natural energy. Nara Shintaku muttered to himself while writing. What invisible things are suitable for stepping on natural energy? The force field of the blood suit technique. Build a temporary cycle in the meridians of the legs to create an instant force field. The force field is like a barrier. The barrier itself has the property of repelling external things. The created force field is like a layer of bubble film, capturing the natural energy that is as scattered as air. Episode 17, Flying Sickle Kick Technique, completed. Captured moment. Natural energy changes from laziness to activity, releasing violent power. This violence is just the driving force for moving forward. And the temporary force field constructed has considerable defensive power, which just offsets the damage caused by the violent natural energy. The combination of the two is simply perfect. Ninjas use the flying sickle kick technique because the foothold is not a physical object, but the ubiquitous natural energy. This means that ninjas can achieve high-speed movement at any location, angle, and position, including in the sky. Nara really wrote here, and he could almost imagine it. A group of ninjas who mastered the flying sickle kick technique, walking in the air, dominating the ground from the sky. The importance of air supremacy needs no further explanation. Especially in the world of Hokage, where there are land forces per capita, it is simply a crushing killer. People who have learned the blood armor technique can quickly learn the sickle kick technique. Because the principles are similar and the difficulty is lower. And learning the sickle kick technique alone is at level B, which is at the same level as the shadow clone technique. Nara Shintaku paused when he wrote here. Although the difficulty is only level B, there is an invisible threshold. That is, sensing natural energy. Although the sickle kick technique does not require too high a talent, it also requires talent. Those who are not talented can only contact objects containing natural energy and spend time to expand their perception. Nara Shintaku shook his head helplessly. This invisible threshold limits the spread of this technique. But in a sense, it is a good thing. The strategic significance of stepping into the air is self-evident. If this technique also has no absolute entry threshold like the blood armor technique, then Konoha will go crazy. The mode of war will also change. At the same time, after suffering losses, the other 4 hidden villages will desperately launch spies and assassinations to obtain information about this technique. At that time, Nara Shintaku was in danger. It's safer now. Nara Shintaku picked up the pen and wrote in the invisible conditions of this technique. The flying sickle leg technique will also be taught publicly. The teaching conditions are the same as the blood suit. The medical department, barrier class, Umbu, test the basic sealing technique and medical ninjutsu level. After all, it also involves the meridian plexus of the leg. After passing the test, it will be recommended to Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya. These two people can get items containing natural energy from the Holy Land. Because the Nara clan cannot produce items containing natural energy. So Nara Shintaku made a modification, changing the Nara clan to Umbu. Of course, this technique will be placed in the Nara clan. People from the three families of Ino Shikacho can be internally assessed to determine whether they are qualified to learn. That's it. Nara Shintaku finished writing and stopped writing. He waited for the ink to dry, then walked out of the room with the scroll. After half a month of absence, Nara Shintaku saw the sun again. He stretched and took a look at the template progress. Current template, Kurotsuchi Mayuri, development progress, 13%, developed technology, blood suit technique, dynamic blood suit and static blood suit, flying sickle technique. Not bad, increased 3% progress. Nara Shintaku nodded with satisfaction, left the clanland, and walked towards the Senju clan. Outside world. As soon as Nara Shintaku went out, he attracted countless eyes in the dark. With the teaching of blood suit technique, more and more ninjas recognized the existence of Nara Shintaku. When they knew that the developer of the technique was only 6 years old. Countless people were surprised and shocked, and couldn't believe it, and immediately felt deeply envious of the Nara clan. Such a genius, why didn't he be born in my family? I don't know how many people have such thoughts in their minds. If Nara wasn't still young and the Ino Shikacho families were not allies for generations, someone would have come to propose marriage to Nara. Senju land. Tsunade's home. Oh, you finally came out, our great genius. Tsunade teased, with an inexplicable resentment in her tone. Why are you so weird? Nara looked at her strangely and threw the scroll in his hand. What is it? Tsunade took it subconsciously. My research results are completed. Nara said with a smile. Finished. Tsunade opened her eyes wide in astonishment, and was so surprised that she was incoherent, saying, You developed Sage Mode? Sage Mode? Nara Shintaku was stunned for a moment, and asked in confusion, who said that? I'm not studying Sage Mode, I'm studying another technique. Now it was Tsunade's turn to be confused, another technique? Yes. Nara Shintaku nodded, it's just that this technique involves natural energy, so it requires various materials, and things from the wet-boned forest Holy Land. Tsunade was stunned. Wait, let me think about it. She frowned and began to recall. Past memories emerged in her mind. Gradually, Tsunade's expression became dull. Yes, who said it was Sage Mode? From the beginning, Nara Shintaku never said that he wanted to develop Sage Mode. He just said to study natural energy. They were the ones who had a preconceived notion that Nara Shintaku was researching Sage Mode, and they foolishly laughed at him, thinking that Nara Shintaku would definitely fail. It turns out that everything was just their own conceit. Episode 18, The Stunned Third Generation, Tsunade's Warning, Bang! Tsunade slapped herself on the forehead. She was really stupid, really. Knowing that Nara was smart, she should have thought that Nara would not challenge something that he couldn't do without knowing his own abilities. What's wrong? Nara couldn't help asking. Why did he suddenly hit himself? It's okay, I just felt stupid and couldn't help but hit myself. Tsunade shook her head and said, everyone outside thought you were studying Sage Mode, but they were all wrong. I really want to see their expressions after they know the truth. Tsunade smiled. Then you have a chance. Nara said. What? Tsunade looked at him in confusion. I also plan to teach this technique publicly, and the conditions for the assessment are already written on it. Nara pointed to the scroll in her hand and said, before teaching it publicly, hold a test like last time. I'll ask you to communicate with the third generation for the specific time and personnel. Teach it publicly as well. Hearing this, Tsunade's eyes completely changed. She looked at Nara incredulously, as if she was looking at a heretic. Didn't I say that I developed a new technique and I hope to spread it? Nara looked at her and said. Tsunade was speechless. Nara did say it, but who would have thought that he was serious? She took a deep breath and suppressed the shock in her heart for a long time. I know, I will arrange a time for the test with the teacher. Tsunade paused and asked, who should be invited for this test? The patriarchs of the three families of Ino Shikacho and Umbu. Nara thought for a while and said. Since it has been decided to bring Umbu in as one of the institutions for the initial screening, it is necessary to invite Umbu to visit. Okay. Tsunade had no objection. A few minutes later, Tsunade went out in a swift and decisive manner and walked towards the Hokage's office. Hokage's office. What did you say? The third Hokage looked at his apprentice Tsunade in surprise and asked, has the technique been developed? Can we hold a test meeting? Developing Sage Mode, is it that simple? The third Hokage was incredulous. Tsunade was speechless and sighed, Teacher, what Shintaku developed was not Sage Mode at all, you think too much. Not Sage Mode? The third Hokage looked stunned. Of course not. Tsunade was speechless and said, from the beginning, Shintaku never said he wanted to develop Sage Mode. He was just studying natural energy. The technique he developed just happened to involve natural energy. The third Hokage was stunned and opened his mouth in a daze. Not Sage Mode? What else can natural energy be used for besides practicing Sage Mode? The third Hokage said in surprise. Tsunade looked at him with contempt. Teacher, that's just because you think it can't be used for other purposes, but Shintaku doesn't think so. Before the blood suit technique test, didn't you also think that it was impossible to defend against B-level ninjutsu and double the strength and speed? Teacher, don't look at geniuses with the eyes of ordinary people. This made the third Hokage's body tremble. He was silent for a long time, exhaled a long breath, and nodded, you are right, I have a preconceived idea. It is because you can do things that others can't do that you are called a genius. I am arrogant. The third Hokage smiled bitterly. Just like his teacher, the second Hokage, who developed Shadow Clone Technique, Flying Thunder God Technique, Reanimation Jutsu, and many other amazing ninjutsu by himself. In the eyes of ordinary people, who can believe that these amazing techniques can be created? But the second Hokage did it. This is the difference between geniuses and ordinary people. Let's arrange the test. Tsunade waved her hand and returned to the topic, saying, this time, Shintaku also plans to teach the technique publicly. The Umbu, the medical department, and the barrier class will conduct the initial screening. After passing, it will be reviewed by me, Orochimaru, and Jiraiya. After passing, it can be taught and learned. Also publicly taught? The third Hokage was very surprised. This child's love for the village is as hot as the sun. The third Hokage actually felt ashamed of himself. He is a child with Hokage thinking. Tsunade folded her arms, looked at the third Hokage seriously, and said word by word, so, the village had better not let him down, otherwise, I don't know what I will do. Tsunade's tone was full of threats. Even if the person in front of her was her teacher, she did not give in at all. The third Hokage's eyes dimmed for a moment, he took a deep breath, and said solemnly, don't worry, I will never let that happen. If it does, it means I am not qualified to be Hokage. At that time, you can do whatever you want. The third Hokage's expression also became solemn. After getting the teacher's assurance, Tsunade's expression eased a little. The current village is very different from when the first generation and second generation were in power. The darkness in the corner is spreading, and the smell of decay is increasing day by day. Tsunade has to warn in advance, lest some people with ulterior motives set their sights on Nara Shintaku. The test is the same as always, put it in 3 days. After saying that, Tsunade turned around and walked out of the office. Episode 19, this time I will demonstrate it myself, in the office. The third Hokage looked tired and rubbed his brows. Don't worry, Tsunade. I have made many mistakes, but I won't make them again. After this war, a new Hokage will be born. And I will go to the grave with the decayed things. In the air. The third Hokage's muttering floated. Soon. Many people received a notice from Umbu that Nara Shintaku's new technique had been developed and a test meeting would be held in 3 days. Wow. Like a stone that caused 1,000 waves, it immediately caused an uproar among the group of insiders. Success. Success. Is it true? No way, how could Sage Mode be developed so easily? It should just be a little research result. Everyone couldn't believe it. But the second news that came immediately surprised them all. Not Sage Mode? Are we wrong? Is it another technique? Everyone was stunned. Isn't studying natural energy for Sage Mode? Otherwise, why study it? So, what kind of jutsu is this? I don't know, I can't imagine it. Never mind, we'll know when we see it that day. 3 days later. In the internal training ground of Umbu Base. The heads of the 3 Ino-Shikucho families, Tsunade, Jiraiya, the third Hokage, and the captain or vice-captain of Umbu in the village were invited to watch the new jutsu test. Strangely, there was no sign of the elders. Teacher, it seems that you haven't lost your decisiveness as a Hokage. Tsunade nodded secretly, feeling relieved. Obviously, the elders are an unstable factor. The third Hokage excluded them because he didn't want these unstable factors to affect Nara Shintaku. Didn't the elders come? Jiraiya also noticed this situation, his eyes flashed, but he didn't say anything. The third Hokage took the initiative to chat with him and asked, Jiraiya, what do you think of the new technique that Shintaku developed this time? Jiraiya thought for a moment and replied, it's hard to say. Why do you say that? The third Hokage was surprised. Teacher, you know that I have mastered Sage Mode. Jiraiya pondered and explained, I know the terribleness of natural energy. It is violent and difficult to control. Even the toads living in Mount Myaboku have failed in their practice. I really can't think of any technique that can make use of violent natural energy. Hearing this, the third Hokage frowned and asked, so, you don't think it will work? Well, I don't think it will work. Jiraiya hesitated and nodded, I don't think Shintaku can solve the problem of the violent natural energy. This is a problem that the three holy places have not solved for thousands of years. So, I guess this new technique may just use the corners of natural energy, with novel effects, but not much value. Jiraiya gave his own judgment. The third Hokage frowned even more. He believed in Jiraiya's judgment. After all, Jiraiya is the only ninja in the current ninja world who has mastered Sage Mode. What he said is naturally valuable. A technique that is not of much value? The surrounding ninjas also heard Jiraiya's judgment. They nodded in unison. That makes sense. I agree with Master Jiraiya's judgment. The violent nature of natural energy is beyond the control of even the Holy Land, let alone a child like Shintaku. Yes, if the violent problem cannot be solved, there is no way to utilize natural energy. This new technique may not have much practical significance. The enthusiasm of the crowd has dropped a lot. For ninjas, techniques with good practical effects are valuable. Because the profession of ninja is full of battles. Maybe we will be disappointed. Someone whispered. Don't say that, how old is Shintaku? Another person retorted, if you have never been on the battlefield, you certainly won't understand the needs of ninjas. It is completely understandable that you can come up with an alternative technique. Yes, you can't deny Shintaku's talent because of this. The third person nodded. But despite saying that, the audience present, especially the captain and vice captain of Umbu, has already determined that this new technique test will probably only be a novelty. What do you think, Tsunade? The third Hokage looked at his other disciple and asked, you should know more than us. Does Shintaku's new technique have practical value? Tsunade smiled meaningfully when he heard this. You will know when you see it. Question mark. Everyone was surprised. What does this mean? Did they guess it right or not? Just when they were about to say something, a sound of footsteps came from outside, and Nara Shintaku entered the venue. Everyone stopped thinking and looked up. Tap, tap, tap. Nara Shintaku walked slowly to the center of the venue, being watched by dozens of people. His expression was still calm, and he said slowly, thank you all for participating in this new technique test. This time, due to the special learning conditions of the technique, no testers were arranged. Let me demonstrate it to you personally. Episode 20, Step into the Air. Special learning conditions? Many people raised their eyebrows when they heard this. It seems that the problem of Berserk has not been solved. That's right, after all, the three holy lands have not been able to solve it for thousands of years. The practical value of the technique should not be great. Hearing these words, Tsunade had no expression on the surface, but she was actually sneering in her heart. Short-sighted guy. How could he understand that in front of a true genius, the so-called problem would not be solved at all? She has seen the scroll of this new technique. It can only be said that it is of top practical value. If it is the same as Shadow Clone technique, it will definitely become the standard of all Jonin. Let me briefly introduce the principle of this technique. In the field, Nara Shintaku didn't care about the whispers of the people below, and talked freely. I named it the flying sickle technique. The principle is the same as climbing out and treading water. It's to gather chakra under the feet, so as to step on some problems that cannot be stood up under normal circumstances. Climbing a tree? Treading water? Everyone was stunned when they heard this. But what does this have to do with natural energy? As we all know, in the world we live in, natural energy is widely present everywhere. So, I had an idea. Can we use the ubiquitous natural energy as a pedal to move by stepping on it? Nara Shintaku threw out his idea. The scene was instantly quiet. Everyone opened their eyes wide in surprise, with a look of shock. Stepping on natural energy? Can this be done? Oh my god, this is something no one has ever thought of. Jiraiya and the third Hokage were also shocked, with surprised faces. It's incredible, this idea is like a wild imagination, completely beyond the framework of ordinary ninjas. The third Hokage murmured. Yeah, I never thought of it either. Jiraiya said in surprise. Looking at the surprised expressions of the two, Tsunade smiled slightly. A short pause. After giving everyone some time to accept it, Nara continued to talk. Once you have an inspiration, the next step is to try to realize it. Natural energy is not a physical entity like water or trees, so you can't step on it directly. So, we have to use the same virtual body to step on natural energy. Virtual body? When everyone was confused, Nara began to demonstrate, and his feet came out, gathering a lot of chakra. Chakra flowed and circulated in the meridians of the legs, forming a layer of bright light blue light, which was like a thin film, wrapping Nara's feet. Please see, this is similar to the blood armor technique. Build a force field in the legs, and use the force field of the virtual body to step on the force field that is also virtual. You will get this effect. Bang! Nara took a step, and the natural energy under his feet suddenly exploded. Under the stimulation of the force field, the natural energy instantly became active, showing amazing violent characteristics, like a detonating talisman exploding under his feet. But the shock wave of the explosion was just resisted by the force field of the legs. Not only did it not cause any damage, but it also formed a powerful driving force. Whoosh! Nara Shintaku was pushed directly into the air. Can it be done this way? Everyone's expressions instantly turned into surprise. What an amazing idea! You actually use the force field to trample on the natural energy without a physical body? Not really. This constructed stance perfectly avoids the negative characteristics of natural energy, resists damage while converting this violence into a driving force for moving forward. The problem of the violence of natural energy was actually solved in this way. Everyone was shocked. Including the third Hokage and Jiraiya. Especially Jiraiya, he was the most shocked one. The problem that has troubled the three holy lands for thousands of years can actually be solved in this way? Unbelievable. Is this child's wisdom beyond the immortals of the three holy lands? Jiraiya was stunned, and his worldview was shocked.